Hello and welcome to Tea with Jamie. This is episode 4. I have made my cup of real English tea this time and I'm taking my first sip. It's nice and hot and sugary, and just like I like it. Some will say that if you drink English tea with sugar, you're not a real Englishman. Well, I challenge any of you to really try and prove that I'm not a real Englishman. I've been living in America now for 10 years. I've been living in LA for 8 years. Next July the 4th in what year is it? Oh, it's 2022. In 2023, that will be my 8th year in LA. And that brings me to this podcast. The title of this podcast is What is Wrong with You, LA? And I'm saying this even though I debate constantly whether it's something that I should really say because, I have a tendency anyway to take personal responsibility for a lot of the positions I find myself in life. If you've listened to the previous podcasts, if you've listened to the previous podcasts, maybe you'll know that about me now is I like to take personal responsibility for things, but every so often I have to really look at my life and the way that I live it and my surroundings and the people I have. And I have to ask the question, is it me or is it them? And this is what this podcast is going to be about. I have been in LA now for 8 years and, I love it. This place is my little safe haven. It's a place where I got away from a lot of things back in my country, which I wanted to avoid. I had a bad family situation. I had people who weren't too kind to me, who also required my attention a lot over there, and I just kind of wanted to get away. And so when I first moved to New York, that was the first step, but it honestly didn't feel far enough. And so then I came to LA, and I came to LA with an ex-girlfriend many, many years ago now. We had been dating for a year, and we both decided to move over to LA. And so the first time that I came to LA and I started to live here, I lived with her and her family up in Calabasas. And it was quite wonderful because I didn't just have her. I had her mom and her dad and her little sister. And so I always had a sort of fulfillment in a way because I was constantly around people and I was building relationships and connections with them. And it was really quite wonderful, especially, her little sister, who at the time, I believe, was maybe 5 years old. I had a lot of fun with her and we played and I got to educate her and be a part of her life. And it was, it's quite innocent and quite fun. Her mom was super intelligent and I really enjoyed talking to her. Her stepdad was also very intelligent. He was a lawyer. And he had some great viewpoints on the world, and I learned a lot about the Jewish religion, and I did a lot of Jewish practices, I'd say, I suppose holidays, because this Jewish family weren't, like traditional Jewish people, i.e., going and praying and really a part of the really traditionally religious Jewish community. They were just more Jewish by culture. And so I got to experience a lot of Jewish culture while I was there. And so I got to learn a lot. Her parents were really loving, and so I got a lot of love from them, and obviously my girlfriend at the time as well. And so my first 2 years in LA were surrounded by people who, really loved me, and by extension of their daughter really loved me. But the real problem started to arise when me and that girl broke up. And after 2 years of being in LA, me and that girl broke up. And that's when I realized I didn't have a solid foundation of friends. I didn't have a solid foundation of living in LA without her. I had been pretty much entirely reliant upon the love of her and her family to sort of fuel me while I'm over here. And that's not much of a problem for me because I'm a friendly guy and, and I'm pretty good in social situations. So I thought, it's okay because I can make friends. And, that's the interesting thing is I thought that I could make friends over here and I thought that it would be very easy. And I have made friends. Don't get me wrong. I have friends and I have some good friends and friends I've been with for a long time. But as I've stated in previous podcasts, my number one experience over here is being on my own. You know, this stuff really starts to show itself when you're putting yourself out there. If you're putting yourself out there, i.e. on a podcast, YouTube, Instagram, something or else, if you're doing that and you don't have the fulfillment that's given to you by having close relationships with people that care, you start to really, really, really feel it. It becomes more difficult to put yourself out there when you haven't got the support that you feel like you need. And so, especially recently, I've been posting on Instagram more. I did the first modeling shoot I've done in almost 2 years. And I've been posting on Instagram, and I've been posting my songs on Instagram and some bits of music on Instagram and all this kind of stuff. And I found myself over the last few weeks just not posting. Well, the last week, I'd say, just not posting to Instagram anymore. And I found, you know, I was starting to feel a little bit more like sad about feeling kind of lonely over here, and not really feeling like, and I had to start really thinking about, why do I feel like this? I've been in LA 8 years. Why don't I have a place that I can go where I come away from that place feeling like I've been seen and I've been loved, which is important. It's important for anyone to have. There are certain people that can exist without that, but I think for the majority of people, it's really important to have someone that sees you and fills you up from time to time. And that allows you to get to greater heights within yourself and to push yourself into uncomfortable areas and have more resilience in those situations. So actors that come over here and they leave within 3 months because it's hard to be on your own. It's really hard to be on your own. And then if you couple that with trying to put yourself out there and do something you love and something that requires an immeasurable amount of confidence, and you don't have someone that's filling you up or people that are filling you up in the process, it can become a pretty dire situation. But obviously I've been in LA for 10 years now, so I've managed to kind of cope with that for a long time over here. But I can tell you now, 100%, while I've been in LA, the support for my music, the support for my acting, the support for all the things which I love and cherish has not been there at all by a single person that I've ever met over here and tried to establish a relationship with. That's just not how it works over here. I'll start by explaining some stories, I suppose, and try and give context to what I'm saying. But I met this girl at my old workplace, and while we were there, you know, I really liked her because she was sarcastic and she was funny, and she'd make jokes about me and all that kind of stuff. The stuff which made me feel seen. You know, I wouldn't get like a standoffish feeling from her at all. You know, I just felt like she saw me, and it was, and she could bring me down to earth, and it was just like a very normal situation. And so I was friends with her at work for almost 2 years, and she went through a terrible situation with her ex-husband, and they ended up getting a divorce. And, you know, over the time that I had first met her in the first year of working at this place, we'd established a sort of relationship where, in my mind, it means that I'm going to be there for her. She always used to constantly joke about me being her best friend. We're best friends. And I used to joke back being like, listen, if you're going to call me your best friend, that comes with some responsibilities. And some people, maybe over here, would say, oh, it comes with responsibilities. Aren't you expecting too much? That's what I heard from my real dad at one point. Oh, you're expecting me to be your real dad. Well, expectations are the death of relationships. And it's a bunch of bullshit. It comes with expectation when you call someone a friend or you call someone a best friend. It comes with expectation. And if you're not having those same expectations or trying to reciprocate on those expectations, then you're not a friend. You're not a friend. You're just someone that has friends around or people around so that you can create the illusion of friendship. And I, as a person, I'm not interested in the illusion of friendship. I'm interested in real friendship. I'm interested in having my own tribe of people around me who support me, and I support them, and we have each other's backs, and we go to war together. Yes, it might seem like I'm a barbarian, but that's how I know friendship. I grew up with people who we live and die for each other. We live and die for each other's happiness, and we support each other, and we help each other when we're not there. We go to war. We've been to war where I come from. I would go out with 5 or 6 of my friends, and if one person got even in the slightest amount of trouble, you'd have 6 people there behind your back, ready to be beaten up if that's what happened. But they would go down with you, and so that is the experience of friendship that I've had. But anyway, continuing on with this girl who kept on, in front of all my other workmates and everything, calling me her best friend. I said it comes with some expectations and stuff, and I ended up talking to her quite a lot, and she ended up getting through a lot of my, reserved barriers, which I can have with people that call me a friend, because, as I say, a lot of people's idea of friendship is very different to my idea of friendship, and so she got through a lot of my barriers of friendship, and I was there. Like, all of a sudden, I was one of her tribesmen, and I would go to war for her, and I would be there no matter what happened, no matter what she said, no matter what went down, I would be there. And so, over some time, she kind of broke me down, I suppose, and she was the person that I was talking to the most, and and so it just so happened to be that she was my best friend of the time, and she was the person who I could talk to and console myself and all of this kind of stuff, and so I thought and I felt like I had a best friend. But as the years went by, 2-3 years, and a pandemic, etc., I started to notice that this feeling that I had inside of myself as this person is my friend, it felt like poisoned food. It felt as though it was something which I would go to fill up and reinvigorate myself. But when I did that, I would be left a little poisoned after it. And the reality of that is because it wasn't a real friend. I had been convinced that we were best friends because of these certain aspects, but really what I started to notice was she was asking me to do a lot of stuff which I would throw myself into and I would do under the guise of she's my tribeswoman, she's my friend, and I would do anything for them. But when it came to reciprocating my feelings and who I am and seeing what I need, what I did for her, it wasn't reciprocated. And it wasn't reciprocated over such a significant time that it started to feel like poisoned food. I started to be like, the little voice inside of me started to be like, wait a second, Jamie, you're putting in way more into this than this person is putting into you. I would date a girl, and that girl would really, really, really mistreat me. I have a few stories of that. And I would talk to my best friend about it, and she would always take the girl's side. And after a while, I was like, why are you always taking the girl's side? Sometimes you leave me on red when I talk about someone that's really hurt me or something. And her response would be, oh, well, men. Because she obviously has some deep-seated issues with men, and I'm a man. And so it created some kind of troubles there between me and her, and between her to be able to really just put her own feelings and thoughts aside and just see me and talk to me and have an experience with me as an individual as opposed to my gender and her gender. But you could say there were many red flags. She went through this horrible divorce, and she also suffers with some mental health problems and stuff. And I knew all that kind of stuff, and I suffer from the same. I can get depressed sometimes and start to isolate myself, which is what I've been doing recently, which is why I even started this podcast, because I've had to, really think about it in the last few days and really check myself of, why am I isolating myself? What is happening? And yeah, so I know that she gets depressed, and I know that she was going through a bad divorce, and so I called her. I called her every day to check in on her. Sometimes she was sleeping 12 hours a day, and I would go up and I'd see her, and I'd make sure that she knew that she had someone in her corner, no matter what, no matter how she was with me, no matter how she spoke to me, no matter the fact that she wasn't giving me what I needed in this friendship. I was there for her. I was there for her the whole time. And, she would call me sometimes at 2 a.m. in the morning, just completely beside herself, just crying and crying and crying on the phone. And I would wake up and I would listen to her and I would give her the advice that I needed. I signed her marriage papers as her witness and all of this kind of stuff. I really threw myself into the deep end because I wanted a friend. I just wanted a friend, and I thought that she was someone that I could really rely upon as a friend. But as I say, fast forward 2 years, she got a new boyfriend, she had a new job, she had lots of things in her life are going really well. And meanwhile, I'm just recovering from the pandemic. I've just got my first job back from the pandemic that both of us used to work at. And I've just ended up breaking up with a girl, which, I fell in love with in 3 months. And that ended up being a terrible situation. And I was emotionally destitute. I didn't have any self-love left in me, and I was really spiraling. I was smoking a lot of weed, and I was smoking a lot of cigarettes, and both to her and to my brother, I had basically put up my hand and been like, I need help. I need some help. And help in that regards is in the form of just someone calling and checking in on me every day, and, knowing that I'm going to be isolating and to try and, get me out of that isolation. Those are the two people that I thought I had who wouldn't judge me and would be able to be there for me, because I felt like they had the emotional capacity for that. That's what I thought. But it just turned out that this friend, all she talked about was the fact that everything in her life was going really well right now, and she couldn't deal with me and my position and how unhappy I was, and over the course of the conversation, everything that I had to say, she threw it back on me, and she misinterpreted everything. And it made me realize, like, I've helped you move 5 times. I've helped you move house. I've lifted your freaking wardrobe and your bed, and, helped you clean out and consoled you when relationships weren't going well, consoled you when you were, sleeping around with people, and, I made you feel okay about that because you'd been married for so long and all this kind of stuff. It's all relative to her and her situation. It's not as if I would tell everyone to go and sleep around and all this kind of stuff. It's relative to her situation. And I was there as a constant support for her that didn't judge her, but at the same time held her accountable. And that's what I expected in reciprocation. And, but all I heard back from her was that her life was great and my life wasn't so great, and she'd give me generic responses to my texts, or sometimes just outright leave me on read. Even after I'd said that I'd left my job, I was going through a phase where I was trying to change everything up, and I personally was a little worried that I was maybe manic and like cutting my legs off, which I have done in the past, and I needed a compass. A lot of people, they need a compass. They need someone that knows them and points them in the right direction when they're in a fog of cloud, when they're lost, when they have lots of thoughts, but they can't find the direction and what to go in those thoughts. They need a compass. And she was my compass. My brother was my compass too. These people were my compass. And when I asked for the compass, they just span it around and they left me completely on my own. And if I was someone that really struggled with mental health and really, 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 in the worst possible way, then I wouldn't be here today. It's thankful that I have a fantastic self-support system which activates in my most lowest times, which gets me out of it, which is why I started this podcast and which is why I started the YouTube. Because, I started to exercise, I really hit the low, and I started to exercise and eat well and started self-loving and self-caring myself. And I started to create new friendships. I started to reach out to more people and try and establish more weekly situations with these people where we could fill each other up and we could feel a little bit of love and feel a little confidence, and we could start to become each other's compass, each other's tribe, and so I'm so thankful that I have that within me, because I'm a survivor and I've been through a lot in my life, and I've developed those coping mechanisms. But if I was someone that wasn't like that, and she called me her best friend, and my brother loved me, he was texting me saying love you and etc., and I wasn't that, then I wouldn't be on this earth. I would have thrown myself off a freaking cliff, and I know that sounds really dark, but there's people out there who really struggle, and if you go and you tell them, oh, I'm here for you, I'm really here for you, and then when they need you, you're not there, then that person's gone. And then what you're going to do? To be honest, the most negative part of myself says, that the people that call themselves that person's friend will be like, oh, I loved him, I was there for him always, when he's not there to be like, wait a second, no you bloody weren't, you weren't there when I needed you actually. You know, this is the problem with some people. Sip of tea, by the way. This is the problem with some people. They talk a big game. Inside their hearts they say something, but they don't follow through on it. So rarely do people walk the walk. Walk the walk that they talk. I need to get that right for my next podcast, because in my previous podcasts I've said that. But so few people do that. And I just cannot understand it. It's a very difficult existence and a very difficult life. And, and I just find that in America and in LA, I haven't been able to establish those friendships and those relationships where I feel like I'm being filled up. I feel like I'm being emptied. I feel like I'm dancing someone else's dance. This same friend, after, I said to her, you weren't there for me and I really need you to be there for me. So now I really have to realign this friendship and create these boundaries to really understand what the hell went wrong here, because the hand that I put up to be rescued with wasn't taken by you. And in my mind, after a 3-year friendship, I thought, knowing me and knowing the situation, that hand would be there, and it wasn't there. And that can't happen again, because I'm, as I say, I'm good at checking myself and checking what I need and really evaluating things on whether they're real or there's some kind of like weird stuff that's going on, which happens a lot in LA. A lot of people in LA are just super weird. They're just super weird. I have people from home and other people that I've created friendships with and relationships with who I've spent a significant amount of time with as well, who don't live so close to me, so it's more difficult to be there for me, but who always, they do the best that they can, and they will always check in and they will always engage with me in like a really personal way. But I've been in LA 8 years, and maybe I have one person that's like that. But in general, after seeking this from people and seeking relationships and connections and trying with people, I don't have that many at all. And I feel empty so much. And the more that I try and do something which is positive for myself and get out there, the more I'm emptied quicker. And I don't have these people that are like, Jamie, man, I fucking love you. You're my bro. I love you. Like, what are you doing? Like, I love you, man. And I do the same in return. But I tell you what, I definitely reserve myself the more that I'm not seeing that this is being reciprocated. I create my boundaries. With certain people, it'll be a snap, and I'll be like, you know what? You're not my friend. Because I let them into, like, way closer into my boundaries towards my core than I should have let them. And other people, I'll just keep on the outside boundaries and be like, okay, you're my friend, but, you're not my tribesman. You're not my compass, And everyone needs a freaking compass. That's what I'm trying to say. I have noticed in LA, time and time again, people will say something to your face and they'll pretend something, but they have an inner monologue that's going on, and really it's a transactional situation 99% of the time. It's like, this is the way the world works. Like, you do something for me, I do something for you. No, that's not the way the world works. That's maybe the way that America works. That's maybe the way that these creative industries work. That doesn't work with me. That doesn't work with me as a friend. It doesn't work with me as a person. I won't be in business with you. I mean, maybe I'll be in business with you or something, but I still have to respect you, and you still have to be in a certain area of my boundaries for me to be able to even work with you. Because I'm not a transactional person. I'm a person who likes people, and I like community, and I want my tribe. If I'm going to have a business and want to be successful, I want it to be with my tribe. I don't want it to be with myself. I don't want to make someone else rich off my hard work, and they are an absolute arsehole. I think there's enough arseholes in this world without having to enrich anymore, and so I won't do that. And my value system on that is pretty strong. I've turned down modeling jobs, big modeling jobs, covers of magazines, and money because I didn't like the photographer that they wanted me to work with. And yeah, some of you will be like, well, that's really stupid. But for me, I'm quite zealous in my beliefs, and that's just the way it is. And if I don't if I don't put my foot down and say, no, I expect more. I expect a deeper connection. I'm not here for you. I'm here for us. That's the truth of it. If we're going to grow and we're going to be friends, it's together. It's not this constant counterbalance of you and me and who's winning and who's the cool one in the relationship and who's got the most and who's got... It's none of that. That is what LA has done to me. I'm just constantly meeting people who have this transactional situation and they want coolness and they want status, and it's all about them. This 3-year friendship that I had, which ended at the beginning of this year, as I say, because I thought she was my compass and she wasn't my compass. Recently, I had to get something back from her to be able to just move on from the friendship and just ignore that it ever existed. Because as I say, I let her get too close to my core of who I am and to become my compass, and I couldn't have that anymore. So she's out of the picture now. But she had something of mine which was very important to me, and I loaned it to her 2 years ago because she'd moved house and she'd lost all her stuff in the divorce, and I was feeling really, like, oh yeah, you can have whatever you want of mine. And so she took it, and she had it for 2 years, and she even told a mutual friend, oh yeah, Jamie just hasn't asked for it back, so I just haven't got it, so I haven't given it back to him. And even when I heard that, I was like, oh God, that's her, but in a friend way. I didn't even mind until I reached out to her and she wasn't there. And obviously after that, I was like, okay, you're not my friend anymore. And so months had passed by and I wanted this thing back. And so I sent her a message and I was like, hello, I would really like this thing back. If you could drop it off, this is my address. Thank you. And she sent me this message back being like, oh, hey, yeah, so I've got a puppy and I'm doing a business and I've got all these 5 businesses opening and, I've been so busy with this and that. And I was like, where the fuck is your common sense? The last text message we had was this huge big falling out months ago. And now you're texting me your whole life story when I'm asking for something that you have had for 2 years of mine. And I'm just asking you to bring it back. And then I responded saying, hey, if you could just drop that off anytime you have available, then that'd be great. Because she said she was busy, and so I was like, anytime you've got it available, that would be great. And she sent me a reply back. Yeah, but please, did you see my reply message? And I was like, this isn't about you. This isn't about you. What is wrong with you? Like, what is wrong with you? Is there no element of being like, what? Hey Jamie, like, what's up? Like, where's this relationship gone? Like, no, all she wanted to do was tell me about her life, even though we didn't have just incredibly selfish and stupid. I'm sorry to say it, but just stupid. I don't know what it is about LA, but it's like people are dead inside. It's like they have no feeling. It's like they don't feel anything. As I say, it is completely transactional. Everything is transactional. I get so many people wanting to be my friend just because of the way I look and because of my Instagram following and because I've had like a modeling career and I'm an English guy. Like, that's why people want to be my friends. They don't want to be friends with me because, oh, Jamie's like a cool guy and like I like him and he's really loyal and none of that even matters. It's about status and appearance 99% of the time. And as I say, I don't operate with that because I find it emptying. I find it leaves me destitute of like what the meaning of life is. So, recently I've been thinking so deeply about moving back to England and moving back with some of my friends there and some of my family and just being around my nieces and my nephews, because if there's one thing about kids, they love freely, and it's like they're like dogs in that way. They love freely, and I need a bit of that kind of love in my life from time to time, so that I can go forward and be the best version of myself out in the world, because that's what I need. Because I'm a community-driven individual. I'm not an individually driven person. I'm not driven for myself. I'm driven to raise me up and to raise others up around me. That's just what I do. I've spoke about that in previous podcasts. And anyway, it ended up that she offloaded that thing to another mutual friend who I'll be seeing on Thursday and picking it up from, and I'm going to buy him dinner and stuff. And obviously still not, bitch about that previous situation, because I just want it over with. I just want it over with. I just want to forget, as I say, that I ever let her in close and ever let her, saw her as a compass, as a guiding point for me when I'm in a really rotten state, which I don't have very much of. The people that really know me know that, I've been emancipated since I was 16 years old. I've self-supported myself through university and school. I've self-supported myself through an 8-year modelling career where I travelled all over the world on my own, completely financially on my own, completely everything is reliant upon me. That's who I am. I've been through a lot of real deep struggle, and it's really made me who I am. But also, if the people that really know me know that if anyone else or many other people had gone through the same thing that I had gone through, they would not have got a university degree. They would not have graduated top 3 in their class. They would not have been able to be a successful model. They would not be able to live in another country for 10 years on their own and really pursue some of the passions that they have. They wouldn't be able to do that. A lot of people wouldn't be here, and a lot of people would have some severe addiction problems. A lot of people just would really struggle, and I've got myself here, and I've done all that kind of stuff. And a lot of the times, a lot of the people that were my compasses really turned away from me, especially during my modeling days, because it was just so wild. It was so wildly different to everything else I had ever done. There was only really a few people who really just asked me and stuck by me and, asked me questions about it and gave me a little support as I was on my way. But as I say, I live in LA now. I live 6,000 miles away from my home and those people. It's very much more difficult to stay in contact. And I live, however many miles, 3,000 miles away from New York, where some of my other relationships that I have that can be my compass are, and I'm not there. I'm in LA, and I chose to be here, one, because I came here with my girlfriend and ex-girlfriend, and I established myself and my life here. And yeah, 2, because I have so much stuff now, and I'm like, well, what the hell am I going to do with all this stuff? What am I going to do with my car? And am I going to sell all this stuff, or am I just going to throw it away? And 3, it feels like a failure for me to go back to England, and it just feels like I would fail. It feels like that emancipated child who had his own flat and put himself through all this stuff. It feels like I fail that guy if I leave LA without feeling like I really succeeded. And success to me looks like having a friend group, having a life, having a girlfriend, having a house, having a career. That's what success, in my head looks like. As much as I know it's an illusion and etc., that's what in my head it looks like. So yeah, that's one friend in LA that I had that situation with, and as I say, it's just very disappointing, because even now I know that she's not self-reflecting and looking at, why this happened and why we're not friends anymore. She's quite happy with her life, and I hope that she remains to be happy for the rest of her life. But I also know that in bad times, that's when people need people the most, and I'm a bit stupid, so, if people reach out to me, even if they've been pretty cruel to me, I'm always there, and I'm strong enough to be there for people, even if they weren't there for me at the time. I'm strong enough to be there and to put them within my boundaries and certain points, etc. But that's one person in LA. And God, I'll tell you this other story after I take a sip of my tea. So, Jesus, right? I had this neighbor during the pandemic, and she was crazy. She was so crazy. We were having this we're having a fire pit, like a fire night out in my back garden. It was me, one of my friends, his girlfriend at the time, and another girl, and his girlfriend's friend. And we were having a fire in the fire pit that's been outside, that we've been having fires in for 6 years. And this girl who's lived there for just as long of a time stands at her window, right pretty close to the fire pit, with an open window, just coughing, like like as in the fire is going into her house, and she's like coughing, and saying, oh, the smoke's getting into my house and it's really bad for me. She could have closed the window at any time, but nope, she coughs. And so my friend's girlfriend and her friend start laughing at our neighbor. They don't live here, but obviously they don't care about creating any problems in our community, but they laugh, and And this girl comes out and she says some of the rudest shit ever. And we're all like, what the hell? Like, what the hell has gone on there? Like, she was a complete bully, the person inside this house. My neighbor was a complete bully. And the next day comes and I spot her destroying the fire pit, destroying our succulents and throwing them inside the fire pit. So I start video recording her. And once she sees me video record her, that's it. It's done. That's going to be a year and a half of intense amount of abuse from this woman. She would come to my house at 3 a.m. in the morning. She would bang on my door, and she would bang, 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 bang. And then she'd run back inside her house. And then at 6 a.m. she'd be outside my house whistling. She'd bang on our connecting wall constantly and shout, "Motherfucker, motherfucker," through the wall and all this kind of stuff. When I had friends around, she'd hang out a window and she'd start insulting my friends. I was dating an Indian girl for a couple of months, and every time she came over, my neighbor would hang out the window and hurl racist insults at her and call me broke. And it was just every single day. No matter what happened, when I came home, I had this neighbor hanging out the window or trying to make my life miserable. But me being a stubborn Englishman, I was never going to move. I was always going to just fight back. And so I had cameras up and all this kind of stuff. And I live in a community, but I had to deal with this completely on my own. Landlord did nothing. No one else in the community did anything. I had to put up cameras for myself constantly because it wasn't directly affecting anyone else. I was completely left on my own. And no one took it as seriously as I was taking it, obviously, because they weren't having a crazy woman bang on their door 24/7. And it was just really rough. It made me feel so alone. There was no one helping me, and it sucked. And I had cameras up all around my property. And I started video recording everything, and it was, it was really, really quite bad. One day she spat in my face, and, I was never aggressive or violent to this person at all, but as I say, because I video recorded her and the fire pit, she decided that it was that I was the only one that she was against, despite it being my friend's girlfriend and nothing to do with me. But as I say, no one did anything. It was during the pandemic, so my landlord couldn't evict her or anything, even though she wasn't paying rent. And and after she saw me video recording her on about the fire pit and breaking the fire pit, and she saw that, she called the police. And she called the police and told them that I was yelling verbal insults at her, and she was, I was throwing cigarette butts at her and stuff. I smoked back then, none of which I was doing because I just would never do that ever. I have everything on video, everything. And so she called the police on me, and it was just this huge thing. And I was like, holy crap, like this girl is like trying to get me in some real severe trouble. She could say anything and I could have to spend a night in jail. And I'm on my own. There's no one helping me. My friend had a place in Idlewild, so he was there 99% of the time. And I was left here just like suffering with this crazy neighbor. And as I say, because he wasn't actually on the property, sorry if you're listening to this, but because he wasn't actually on the property, it wasn't affecting him. And I don't think he really understood the depths of how much it was affecting me, because it was affecting me in such a massive way. And I had no support. I was here during the pandemic, 6,000 miles away from home on my own. And I was in a bit of a depressed state as it is. I could have maybe gone up there, but it's a different situation. It's a different situation being in someone else's house than it is being in my house. It is never as comforting, it is never as relaxing, and it is never as supportive as, unfortunately, I support myself. And so at the time, I couldn't do that. And but anyway, I ended up getting a restraining order against this girl, and then eventually the pandemic finished, and the landlord started trying to collect rent, and so she abandoned her property, and that was done. And she was out, and I was victorious. But it still took me about 3 months to warm back up again and start, playing music and doing the things that I used to do, because, I'd been living for a year and a half with noise cancelling headphones on, because every time that I made a single sound that transferred through her wall, she would bang on my windows, bang on my door, start yelling stuff, and then she'd run back in her house. And so I was constantly in a fight reflex, constantly. And I was so stressed. I was so stressed. I'm sure I have like 50% of my greys in my hair because of this situation. Like, it was terrible. It was just so terrible. And, at the time I wasn't talking to my mom. I hadn't really reconnected with my friends in England. The pandemic was happening, so a lot of people were going through their own things. and I had no support, and I had to deal with all that on my own. So that's another crazy person in LA. And then we got a new neighbor, and the new neighbor, just maybe 4 days ago, I had a shift at 5 a.m. and I get a bang on my door at 2 a.m. in the morning, and I open my door and I'm like, "Oh, what's going on? What's going on?" Because I have this hero complex, and I was about to save her from some homeless man that broke into her house or something. That's what I thought, but no, she's just very, very drunk, and she says something about her friends and being replaced, and I'm like, this is 2 a.m. in the morning, and I have a 5 a.m. Alarm clock, and I have to be at work at 6 a.m. Can we not do this? But it turns out that she was locked out of her house, and so I couldn't go back to bed knowing that she was locked outside of her house. I live in Hollywood. It's a bit of a dangerous area, and so I was like, hey, you know what? I will help you out. And so I got my phone out and I started searching for her keys, searching all over her car for her keys. I was asking her, where could you be keys? Where are your keys? Did you drive back? But I thought in my head that she couldn't have driven back because she was so wasted. If she drove back, that was like a huge issue. It turned out that she had drove back, but I still couldn't find her keys, and I just wanted to get to bed. I had a really early shift and I hadn't been sleeping very well for a while, so I just really wanted to get to bed. And so I ended up ripping the mesh off one of her windows and climbing in through the bathroom. Meanwhile, she's laughing and taking pictures of me with my legs stuck out the bathroom window, which, yes, objectively is very funny, but at the same time, this is what I'm talking about, this kind of selfishness. And I get in through her window and I open the front door for her, and she gets in, and I move her Amazon packages inside. What is wrong with me, honestly? I move her Amazon packages back inside, and I get 3 hours of sleep, and I wake up and I go to my shift at work, and I find her indoor cat outside, and so I let her indoor cat back into the house. The cat looked very scared, like, I've seen shit tonight that I never want to see again. We've got raccoons and possums and other bad boy cats around the area, so I'm sure she did see some shit that night, and she was just hid in a little bush. It was one of the cutest things I've ever seen, I'm not gonna lie. Silver linings. But yeah, and yeah, and so I put her back in the house, and I go to work and all this kind of stuff, and then my neighbor heads off for 2 days. She goes out of town and everything, and then I see her the other day, and like, she doesn't say thank you. She's not texted me saying thank you. She's not said anything about it. She remembers it. She spoke to my friend about it and how embarrassed she was to my friend about it, but nothing to me. What is wrong with you, Americans? Like, what is wrong with you? Since when does personal embarrassment about a situation take over personal responsibility? I did something, and I did something pretty great for her. I'm not saying that I deserve thanks or whatever. I'm just saying that within a city where time and time again I'm faced with people that, just don't really care about you. And as I say, there really is like an American selfishness, which is just so different to Europe. Like, there's an individualism. There's just a lack of care. And especially in competitive markets such as LA, everyone is so focused on themselves that there is no community here. There's no community vibe at all. There just really isn't. And within that situation, yet again, I have someone that I went really far out of my way for, and I don't even get a thank you or a text message just saying sorry. What is wrong with you, Americans? Like, what is wrong? Like, that is so wrong. And the worst thing is that I feel like I'm a bad person for even expecting just like a little thank you for that. Like, I really put myself out of the way. So that's another crazy LA person that I've had to deal with here. The amount of times here that I've had to deal with people that it's like I'm talking to a robot. It's like I don't get to see who they are. It's a mask. It's a constant mask. It's a constant mask of competition. What can you do for me? What can blah blah? What can you do for me without me having to do the most little that I possibly can? And the worst part about it is because LA is all liberal and like, oh, we love everyone and everything's great. There's like a bunch of people walking around as if they're like really, really good people, but they don't care about the people that are close to them. I have this other friend who is a photographer, and I'd known him for years, and I'd shot with him like a few times because he was a photographer and I was quite a big model at the time, and I shot with him for free a fair amount of times, and hung out with him, and I went up to his house and cooked him and his friends breakfast one morning because, as I say, I'm trying to establish friendships. I'm trying to establish this situation where I have my tribe and I have my compasses, and they know that I'm there and I know that they're there. And honestly, I saw a post from him on Facebook just the other day, and it's literally just like, I had my birthday, my life is so special, like everything about me is so special, like everything's special and special and special. And I'm like, dude, I know that you suffer from mental health problems. I know that in a few months' time you're gonna be like, who are my real friends? And I'm like, this is what you get. Like, this is what you get when everything is about you. And I know it's his birthday, and so it can be about him. I'm just saying that this is like a common theme of the people that I meet over here. They say that they're really good people, but they do the bare minimum, and it's all about them, and it's all about their story and their journey. LA is sick with main character syndrome. Everyone here is the main character. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. Just because you have a community and it's equal and your equal amount of friends doesn't make you lose power. But I think there's something about the American ideology which just makes Americans feel like they lose power if they give themselves up to someone else, i.e. their friends or their relationships. I know so many people with bad relationships and suffering from mental health problems and stuff, yet this is what I see continuously. I see everything being about them and about their progress and their journey and being the main character. I think America in general is just, they think they're the main character of the entire world, and I think that's been seen in many, many situations. I'm not disregarding the fact that America is a very strong country, which lots of countries rely upon for help, etc., but you're not the main character, America. You know, like, you're really not. There's like a wealth of history and a lot going on in the rest of the world, and just because you're in economic power while your citizens don't have health insurance and homes to live in and etc., you know, it's a false main character syndrome. But it really does trickle down, I think, to the American people, because, as I say, like, yeah, I don't know. It's just very, very difficult to have like real communication and real relationships and real compasses. I know a lot of people who have repatriated to here, and they live over here now, and they're from different countries, from all around the world, from Serbia, from Italy, from France, from all kinds of places, Australia, etc. And they tend to only be friends with other Australians and other French people and etc., or other European people. And there's a reason for that. Because it's very, very hard to trust Americans a lot of the time. And I love Americans and I love America, and you know, there are qualities which I came to over here to learn, i.e. a little bit more individualism, because, as I say, in England especially, I think it goes the other way to the point where no one wants to raise their head. You know, what is it? The highest wheat gets chopped or something like that. The highest corn head gets chopped or something. That's very much the mentality in England, where you don't raise your head above everyone else and everything has to be balanced. And I don't like that so much sometimes, because it definitely stifled me a little bit. But in America, God, it's the complete opposite way. Everyone's the main character. Everyone is the most successful, the coolest, the most special, the best person, the most good-hearted people. And it just drives me absolutely nuts. So yeah, I've been just in a rough spot. Just like, I've been here for 8 years and I don't have people I can go to fill me up. I have to have phone conversations with people 6,000 miles away, which is wonderful and beautiful, but I have to have phone conversations with people 6,000 miles away just to feel like a little bit sane. I'm not programmed like that. I'm not programmed to have it all about me. I tell you what, if I was programmed to have it all about me, I wouldn't fucking have it all about me. Like, I have more than enough of power to be selfish and manipulate and take, but it's just not in my nature. It's just not in my nature. I could get whatever the hell I want, but I don't want to get what I want at the expense of other people. And so, you know, I'm constantly in a situation where in LA I'm surrounded by people that, you know, want what I have. They want the ability that I have to take what I want. God, if people could take over me for a couple of weeks, you know, I dread to think what would happen, because a lot of the qualities that I have, which, you know, this might sound really arrogant, but the amount of qualities that I have, which means that within this fabricated world of status and coolness and all that kind of stuff, I could literally just go and reap whatever the hell I wanted. I could get wherever I wanted. All I'd have to do is give a little wink and a little charming hello, and I could get what I wanted. But I don't want that. I want things from an equal standpoint and from equality. I don't want anyone to be friends with me because they think I'm better than them and that I somehow raise their status. I don't want to be. I want everyone to know that they're really special and that they have something that I don't have, and that by combining what I have and what they don't have, and or what they have and what I have, by combining those differences, we create real superpower. We create real human superpower. It's about a combination. I'm no better than anyone else. I'm no better than anyone else. I have certain qualities which, which are stronger in me than others, but other people have qualities that are significantly stronger than in me. And if we can combine from a balanced standpoint and not a as I was saying, it's a lot of illusion. I did that again. I got all excited and pressed the space bar again. Like, what the hell is wrong with me? You'd think by episode 4 I'd be a little bit more technically savvy with this stuff, but hey, here I am. I didn't post the last podcast on my YouTube because the whole thing was so blurry. It was so blurry. I'm dealing with whatever I can, but yeah, it's just kind of, it's soulless and disconnected. I think that people reserve their community for their families, and they don't give it out anywhere else. All that anyone's really concerned with is having relationships and having like, I guess that's all that people in America can trust, because I think that America is just bred with distrusting others. I just think the whole situation is like that. You have guns because you distrust the government and you distrust other people, which I do as well. Don't get me wrong. I'm not against guns whatsoever. But I just think distrust is bred over here. And I think when you get into a place like LA, where it's competitive and everyone is vying after the same thing, I think that distrust just gets put to the absolute maximum. And I understand that that's a reality, and I understand that that's how people behave. But at the same time, where does personal responsibility in pushing through that distrust come? Because I tell you what, if you want a friend like me, then you're not going to have a friend like me. If you have that, you're not going to have many other people with different qualities to me. If you have that, you're only going to have the same people in your life constantly, and it's going to be a shallow relationship, and you're never going to grow, and you're going to constantly go through life thinking that you're the main character, not being a reliable compass for someone else. And what's the point of existence, and what's the point of life if it's all just for yourself? There's just no point to it. This life is about community. Human beings have an instinctual desire to have community. If we didn't have a community thousands of years ago, maybe not millions, thousands and thousands of years ago, if we didn't have a community, you'd be dead. Once all this stuff crumbles, you'd be dead. There are a lot of people that are overweight and have extreme health problems in America. Extreme mental health problems. It is definitely the most prescription pilled country in the entire world. Suicide rate is really, really high. There's school shootings. Let's just put that, for example. There's school shootings. And why is that? Because they have this just all about themselves and not really strong community like there is in Europe. I think Europe have been through so much with World War II and World War I, etc., times where community really had to band together to really make the country survive. And because America is so far away and it's such a difficult country to invade, etc., I just don't think they've had anywhere near the same amount of community creating situations, and they've just constantly relied upon the government and just the extreme capitalist way that America has had in the short amount of history that they've had. That's the reason why I think Americans are the way that they are. And I do know some Americans, etc., but I have to say out of all the Americans I've met, it's very, very difficult to get to that next level of connection, of really feeling like if shit hit the fan, you've all got each other's backs. I feel like everyone has their own castle. Everyone is on their own, and what they give to you is what they decide that they will give to you, based upon what they see as you being able to give to them. And personally, I'm feeling a little tired, and I'm feeling a little drained, and I know I have a lot to give, and yeah, and I think I'm going to go back to England, and I'm going to give it there. But we shall see what will happen with that. But I'm not going to lie, the fantasy of heading back to England and not having to exist in this emptiness anymore is quite exciting to me. But yeah, so there we go. That's my rant. I was significantly more energized today than I was any other times. That's my analysis of America and how I've felt in the 10 years that I've lived here. And I've tried. I have tried. I've put myself out there for people, and I have been stung constantly. I really have been stung. And what I've given and me being there through real moments, friends breakups, etc., it just has never been reciprocated to me whatsoever. I went through a breakup, in February this year, which really broke my heart, and I've been in LA for 8 years, and I didn't have a single soul there for me. And I'm just very thankful that I can be there for myself. And this is the stuff that I remember when I think, hey, I think it's time for me to abandon my green card and head back home. So this is Tea with Jamie, and honestly, again, thank you so much for listening. You're all beautiful people, and I am still getting so much feedback. I didn't even post my last podcast to my YouTube because it was all blurry, and I still had people messaging me and texting me asking for when the next episode is. So I love you all, and I'm really happy that you sit here and listen to me, and I hope you all take care. Thank you very much. This is Tea Time with Jamie, and this is episode 4. Thank you.